I'm Jeff Chang, and this is Notes from the Edge on KALW. Do you want to start? Do you want to do some level checks?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. Hello.
Hey.
Check.
Okay, great. That's all good stuff for for that part of the intro where it's like I sat down with the sort of the soft intro.
Hi, I'm Jeff Chang. I'm a writer who lives out here at the edge of the Pacific, where the tides of the past and the future meet in the ever-evolving present, where I like to pull out my notebook and pen and try to make sense of the world. Welcome to Notes from the Edge, KALW's brand new show and podcast. In these increasingly uncertain times, America feels perched at the edge of division, despair, and disaster. But it's at the edge where we can also see the land and the water and imagine what's next. What matters is what we see here, problems or possibilities, the abyss or a new bridge. So in each episode of Notes from the Edge, we're going to look at our rapidly changing world from a different angle. We'll invite in visionaries who might see things in those shifting tides that we can't, who might be able to tell us where the currents are taking us. In this, our first episode, we bring you notes and music from the edge of resistance. In the earliest days of his administration, President Trump was busy declaring one emergency after another. A border emergency that required constitutionally questionable deportations. A trade emergency that required massive global tariffs. A DEI emergency that required the whitewashing of websites, widespread government layoffs, and the defunding of universities. These emergencies seemed like a strategy, and maybe even a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what is the shape of this national emergency, and how should we be resisting it or transforming it? Joining us in the studio today are two visionaries at the edge, the writer Rebecca Solnit and the comedian Kamau Bell. They're going to tell us what they're seeing on the front lines of politics and culture and the current state of the resistance. But first, some music. I mean, what's a movement without an anthem, right? Throughout this hour, we'll be hearing sounds of resistance from Dead Pioneers, a punk band led by the indigenous artist Greg Deal that I think perfectly fits the mood. Here's Working Class Warfare off their new album, Post-American.
We choose the right to be who we are. We know the difference between the reality of freedom and the illusion of freedom.
Disobey, no calling in sick today. Your greedy overlords, they will make you pay. You're worth this minimum wage, it doesn't matter your age. Profits over people, I'm in a fit of rage. The revolution is televised, nothing hidden nor disguised. The rich are getting richer, and we are not surprised. Say you earn a living, earn the right to live. Dismantle social class, a pound of flesh we give. It's capitalism you see, and it doesn't work for me. It collapses all around us, and wouldn't you agree? Freedom shouldn't have to have a fee.
This regime will not last forever. It may not last 4 years. I'm not sure it will last 4 months. I know something and you know something they don't know. When they destabilized the most stable republic in history, they opened up the possibilities. They think they have all the power because they don't understand power. But you all understand that we have power and we intend to use it. What happens next is partly in our hands. We can write the next chapters of this country's history if we stand up, show up, speak up, stick together, stay committed.
Welcome back to Notes from the Edge. That's the voice of Rebecca Solnit from the April 5th Hands Off rally here in San Francisco. She's the author of more than 20 books, including River of Shadows, A Paradise Built in Hell, Orwell's Roses, and Hope in the Dark. Her new book is No Straight Road Takes You There, Essays for Uneven Terrain. She's a historian of hope, a student of surprise, and a much-needed guide for those of us trying to navigate this moment. Rebecca, welcome to Notes from the Edge.
Thank you, Jeff.
It's so great to have you here. So it seems like since the election, you've been writing a lot. You've been writing a newsletter called Meditations in an Emergency, which, aside from the amazing Frank O'Hara reference, props, is also kind of a prophecy in a way, right? Are we in a national emergency right now?
I think anybody who doesn't think we're in an emergency is in a coma or denial or some other terrible condition and needs help. We are in a dire emergency. And one of the things that's making me crazy is that most of the journalism will report on one piece. It's like if the federal government is an entire building, they'll be like, oh, they removed the front door. Oh, they're taking out the sink. And it's like, Jesus Christ, they're demolishing the whole goddamn thing. So yeah, it's many kinds of an emergency. We can see the economy collapsing. We can see the virulent racism and misogyny and transphobia. We can see the attack on research and education, the attack on truth itself, the attack on public health and medicine, and the attack on nature and climate action. What isn't under attack other than white heteropatriarchy?
It's interesting because it clearly was planned. Right? They had a whole book, a blueprint called Project 2025. They kept on denying during the election that it was about that at all, that this was just a distraction, but they were clearly planning it. What are they planning to do? Is there logic behind this? What's going on here?
And one of the things that's been true of both Trump regimes is that it kind of mashes together a bunch of people with different agendas. I think that Trump, as Jamel Bouie noted in the New York Times a few weeks ago, is basically on his revenge tour. America's the woman who rejected him, and he's going to terrorize, punish, and maybe murder her. And Elon Musk, I think, is part of the network state, far-right Silicon Valley crowd who think if you destroy the federal government, you can invent their little fascist city-state vision. And then I think other people in there have their own agendas, financial, political. They want one piece of the picture, like women to be reduced to 11th class citizens again, or immigrants to be terrorized. And Pete Hegseth is probably just drunk.
Have they done anything to surprise you?
No, and it came on maybe more fast and furious than anyone expected, and kind of more nihilistic because truly, I used the structure thing, but it's also could be like, they're pulling out all the supports, and how many supports do you pull out before the whole thing collapses? I think we might be months away from some kinds of big systemic collapses, and again, journalism is so much what happened yesterday rather than how does what happened yesterday fit in with what's happened over the last 3 months or how the whole thing works.
I wanted to ask you to maybe elaborate on one of the points that you were making in this clip that we just played in your speech from April 5th, where you talked about how they don't understand power, but we do. And I'm wondering if you can unpack that a little bit. What don't they understand about power?
I think their vision of power is a pretty conventional one, that power is consolidated in an elite, in the wealthy, and in the people in government, which of course causes most of the rest of us, or too many of the rest of us, to believe we have no power. But when civil society bands together with enough commitment and enough numbers, it is more powerful than regimes and routinely topples them, as it did last year in Bangladesh, for example, as it did in 1989 with almost every Eastern European regime, as it has over and over and over again. But what's really interesting is they do things and they just think we're going to do it and it will be done. And of course, we're seeing a lot of things where the courts are, stopping them, overturning them, freezing them. But also, one of the really interesting examples is Elon Musk thought he could become a bad cartoon villain and do anything he wanted because he's the richest man in the world. And now he's got Doge and he's part of the most powerful government in the world. And then it turned out that he's in retail and there's one law in retail. The customer is always right. And the customer said, Tesla, sell your Tesla, don't buy your Tesla, dump your Tesla stock. And the fact that the public has the power to destroy the brand Tesla and a significant chunk of Elon Musk's fortune seems to have been a big surprise to him. So we're seeing people organize to resist. And one of the things that's actually kind of exciting to me is that they're attacking constituencies who haven't been attacked like this before. Veterans.
Government workers.
Yeah, government workers, people who depend on Medicare and Medicaid, people who rely on their Social Security, people who do research, people in medicine.
People in health clinics.
Yeah.
Rural health clinics.
Yeah. And in a funny way, they're building a coalition for us. And, I've been going regularly to the wonderful noon on Saturday Tesla protests here in San Francisco. And what's been really interesting since February is seeing these are not usual suspect people. And I talk to people, they're wonderful. A lot of them are older and white. And definitely talk to a bunch of people who have literally never protested before. So, we're being tested. And will we rise up to defend what we love, what we need, what we value? Will we defend our survival? Will we defend the survival of the more vulnerable, the people who've been sent to that gulag in El Salvador and to Guantanamo and who are being terrorized and held in ICE detention? And it kind of looks like we will, but will it be enough? And I worry about people on the left saying, well, we don't want to go back to where we were. And I don't think we ever will. But back to where we were is infinitely better than where we are right now in almost every respect. So it's really interesting. We're in a revolutionary moment where, in a way we haven't in 250 years, we're going to make the future of this country with how we show up, whether we show up, who shows up, what the vision is, how it's communicated. So it's very much an emergency that calls forth everyone. And if I can just ramble on for another second. And the reason I love the title of that Frank O'Hara poem, Meditations in an Emergency, partly because the word emergency comes out of emerge, which is the opposite of merge. It's when things separate and kind of rise up and appear. Emergencies can actually be useful and transformative as well as urgent and dangerous. And meditations, I love the oxymoron of that, where it's like, oh my God, what crazy stuff is going on. We need to slow down and understand it deeply. We need to be calm and face it. So I like that oxymoron. A little Buddhism, a little firefighting.
All the beautiful things.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask one more question before we go to break, which is to bring culture into this. Our good friend, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Viet Thanh Nguyen, recently wrote that there's no way to separate the culture wars from actual wars.
No. San Francisco's own beloved Diane DePrima once said the only war that matters is the war against the imagination. To kill people, to other them, to deny them their rights, you first have to pretend that you have nothing in common with them, that you're not connected to them. You have to kill off the part of yourself that feels their suffering, that cares. And, we could go from Diane DePrima to Bell Hooks talking about the first violence patriarchy does is of men against themselves to kind of kill off that empathic feeling. So, yeah, one of the missing stories is the fact that this country depends on immigrants. Immigrants, even from a totally amoral, purely economic point of view, are absolutely necessary. We say it at Thanksgiving, but we should say it every day. And, the way I put it is, if you like food, think an immigrant.
Yes.
But a huge amount of stuff from highly skilled doctors to day laborers, keep everything from the construction industry, in which Kilmar Garcia was an apprentice in a union, to medicine, to food, to home health care, everything else. And, they keep it all going.
Thank you, Rebecca. Stick around. We have so much more to talk about. On the other side of the break, Kamau Bell.
Like with everything going on, my New Year's resolution was just to be more petty. That's how I'm going to improve my circumstances. I'm not letting any of this dumb shit slide that they're doing. I'm going to be more petty. I'm making fun of everybody all the time. I'm calling every fool's out. I don't care. I'm just going to be more petty as a way to feed my soul. And feed my soul through pettiness. That's why I see people in the media trying to be above it, and it's like, you can't be above it. Remember Michelle Obama first said, when they go low, we go high. And then she said, when they go low, I don't go to the inauguration, is what she said. They went too low.
That's Kamau Bell doing stand-up on the stage of the Kennedy Center this past February, not long after President Trump announced that he was going to take it over. Kamau's been a stand-up comedian, a producer, a director, a writer, a television and podcast host, but mostly he's been helping all of us make sense of this mess that we're in with humor, heart, and a sharp eye. Through his Instagram account, his Substack, Who's With Me, and his recent collabo with Michael Lewis in the best-selling book, Who is Government? He's been pulling back the curtain on what's been happening and where we might be headed. Kamau, welcome back to KALW and Notes from the Edge.
When did I lose my credit as being friend of Jeff Chang? Where did that credit go? You listed all those credits after all we've done together, after all you've done for me, and now you can't even say, and is a friend of mine.
I'm a FOK. I'm a friend of Kamau.
You're trying to be a journalist. I don't like it.
So Kamau, is pettiness the new resistance? Is that what's going on?
It's a part of it. Yeah, it's funny. It's like that show, I was writing a lot of those jokes while I was backstage being introduced. Wow. So I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. That's a good one.
Wow. Tell us about that. I mean, you found yourself in this situation, literally this historic making situation where a president decides that due to his anger and pettiness and rage at the Kennedy Center, he's going to take it over. He's just going to step right in and take it over. And you're thrust into the middle of this. Tell us what happened.
So it's funny because the timeline, everybody who sort of knows that he took over the Kennedy Center, I find is confused on the timeline. And even because the way that shows up in your news feed, like I had a woman at the Hands Off rally come up to me and say, are you still going to do that gig at the Kennedy Center? Like, ma'am, that was in February. And yes, I still did it. Yeah. Ooh. Like the day before I was scheduled to leave on the plane, he decided to take it over. But nobody knew what that meant. So all the people who had booked me and coordinated it were like, we don't know what that means. Do you still want to do it? And I had to think about it. And I just didn't understand why I wouldn't do it knowing who I am. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think as a stand-up comedian, I'd like to think I'm walking in the shoes of like Lenny Bruce and Dick Gregory, and even the still active shoes of Wanda Sykes. You know what I mean? Like of people who like, I'm going to go to the place and speak directly to the thing that we're all thinking about and maybe afraid of. So I get if you're like I get like Rihanna and Giddens being like, I'm not going to do it for various reasons, but also because I can speak directly to the thing. And also, it was like the day before. I was already like on the flight. You know what I mean? Like it was just like, so I was like, I'm going to go. But the thing I did do, which I learned from, I have a friend, Rebecca named Jeff Chang, that I reached out. There were some people there who were doing a drag queen rally because Trump was saying he didn't want any more drag queens in the Kennedy Center. So we coordinated their rally and my performance. So I went outside and spoke to their rally, and they sent some people in to see the show. And so, it was also like a community bonding event. Now I know the Free DC movement, who I didn't know before. I got a T-shirt, which is how you if you want to sign me up for anything, give me a free T-shirt. So yeah, I did some community building, which I learned from my friend Jeff Chang, Rebecca. So I did the thing that I was trained to do.
Yeah. I know you've been joking that in a lot of ways Trump makes you nostalgic. Nostalgic for what?
I just miss regular evil. Remember regular evil, Jeff? Remember like old school? I miss Dick Cheney. Remember Dick Cheney evil? It all made sense. He just wanted to take over the world. I got it. When his friend snitched on him, he took him out hunting and shot him in the face. Remember that old school gangster evil? This is not regular evil. This is like a whole different type of evil that doesn't make any sense. Even down to like one of Trump's first executive actions was to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which is not a thing. Even the fact that they're sort of flooding the zone with nonsense while they actually do destroy the foundations of this country. Let's be clear, this is actively fascism. But it's done but there's also just this sense of the absurd nonsense that they do it with. Like, think about Pete Hegseth. Trump could have found an actual evil guy who knew what he was doing to be the Secretary of Defense. You know what I mean? Like, there are actual hardcore, evil, right-wing people who would love to be the Secretary of Defense and do it in a way that actually sort of aligned with the right-wing agenda. And he got a weekend fill-in Fox News host.
I keep on looking at these things and going, this is what meritocracy is supposed to look like?
Yeah. No, it definitely shows that white supremacy is more of a performance-enhancing drug than a real thing. It is not actually a real thing.
Let me ask you this as a stand-up comedian, as somebody who hasn't been afraid to fight the power or stand up and say what needs to be said in the situation. Is there anything that feels too hot right now? You're touring not just in blue states, but in red states as well. Mm-hmm. Is there any joke that you're afraid to tell? Or
no, I mean, I'm only afraid to tell if I haven't figured out the punchline. Mm-hmm. That's not even true. I will actually tell a joke if I haven't figured out the punchline, because being on stage will help me get to the punchline. I'm only going to censor myself if I'm like, I don't have this baked enough to even say it out loud yet. That's why I did the Kennedy Center. If I say no, if I say I'm not going to do it, I am I'm censoring myself. I'm going like, I'm afraid to go there, or I'm telling myself you can't do what you should be doing. You know, and I always have this moment in my career, it happens regularly, where I'm like, are you the person you claim to be? If you're the person you claim to be, then the decision gets much easier. Doesn't mean it's more fun, because I'm the person I claim to be. I made a 4-hour documentary about Bill Cosby. I wish I wasn't in some ways. I mean, I'm fine now, but like at that point, you're like, I wish I was not this way. I wish I wasn't my mom's child. Is what I'm saying. But like,
you're blaming it on your mom.
I blame it on my mom.
Well, we'll let her know.
Jeff Chang and my mom. Like when the Kennedy Center thing came up, you know, it was like, if I am the person I claim to be, who walks in the tradition of all these great comedians like to speak truth to power, then I got to go try to speak truth to power, you know?
I wanted to ask sort of maybe a little bit more of a high-level type of question, just in terms of...
So this is for Rebecca, is what you're saying?
No, this is for you.
Come on, I need to ask a more high-level question, so I'm going to move away from you.
It has to do, though, with the culture and these attacks on culture. Mm-hmm. And you've taken your young daughters to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, also known as the Blacksonian. But in recent months, the Trump administration has been cutting funding, right, for arts and culture, for humanities, and for history. What scares them about places of culture and history like the Blacksonian?
I thought you meant my daughters. Like, nothing scares them.
No. What scares them? I qualified to them. Right?
Yeah, no, I got you.
The Trump and his MAGA folks.
What scares them is that deep down they know, and I think I'm quoting maybe Confucius, they ain't shit. Deep down.
I think it was like Analects 35.2 or something. Yeah.
They know they ain't shit. And they know that if they tell the truth about this country, they will be revealed to not be shit. And instead of like, what you could do then will be like, you're right, we have made a lot of mistakes. And we should own up to that, and let's make it right, because we're stronger together, and we're stronger if everybody feels seen and heard and properly nourished and resourced and properly educated. So let's do a soft reopening of America instead of the hard reboot we're about to go through. So for me, I think Trump and those people know that if you go to the Blacksonian and you see the truth of this country, you're going to look at all the contributions that Black people done to this country, look at all the torture Black people got through and still survived and then thrived. Look at the beauty of Black people looking through our own eyes instead of the beauty of looking through the white gaze. We don't need you, and you should feel lucky that we're still here. And I think that scares them, because then they go, well, who are we? You know, if all we are is what history says we are, then it's like, oh my God, am I a monster? Well, you are if you don't admit to having monster tendencies. So, I mean, the fact is, they also attacked the Women's History Museum, but that hasn't even opened yet. They're afraid of things that reveal that white, male, cisgender, heterosexual men are not the inheritors of the universe.
You're listening to Notes from the Edge. My name is Jeff Chang. We're going to take a little bit of a music break here with Dead Pioneers.
There's something I want to say. Listen closely. I will only
That's the voice of Greg Deal of Dead Pioneers. The new album's called Post-American, song's called STFU. We're back with Rebecca Solnit and Kamau Bell. We're talking about the edge of resistance. It's so great to have the both of you here. You know, you're two of my favorite people in the world and two of my favorite thinkers in the world. I wanted to ask you this. Both of you spoke at the April 5th rallies here in the Bay Area. What are you seeing in this moment of the resistance? And what are you drawing on for inspiration?
One of the things that's pretty tragic about a lot of Americans, especially white Americans, is they are somewhere between giving up quickly and having short attention spans, where it's like, oh, we had a protest on Tuesday and the government didn't fall to its knees, say we were right and do everything we told them to on Wednesday. We lost. You know, my hope does not come from looking forward because we don't know what's going to happen. It comes from looking at the past and seeing people who persevered, Las Madres de la Plaza de Mayo in Argentina, who showed up and protested all through the dictatorship and then never stopped because there was still justice to be done.
And these are the mothers of people that the government regime had disappeared, political prisoners.
And they would go and march around the plaza in front of the equivalent of the White House, you know, wearing these white kerchiefs with their children's and grandchildren's names. You know, there's this really interesting way women have been able to intervene because they're not targeted in the same way because we're supposed to be harmless or whatever. But they were so courageous and they stood up when nobody else dared to, did incredible organizing, and never stopped. When I was in Argentina 20 years ago, I got to march with them, and it was one of the most exciting things I've ever done politically. But just to look at all this stuff, you know, the bad version of American history is Abraham Lincoln was very nice and he freed the slaves. The good version is, you know, slave uprisings and the abolition movement. In the Museum of American History, may it last forever, there was this stuff that reminded me, there were these nice ladies in New England who were like making little handicrafts to sew at bazaars to destroy the most valuable institution in the American economy. It looked really unrealistic that a bunch of nice New Englanders and a few Southerners, mostly impoverished, you know, some people escaping slavery like Frederick Douglass, were going to transform the country so profoundly, and then they did. The faith and confidence of somebody hand-sewing a pincushion in 1843, like, that fires me up. And the fact that Indigenous people never stopped resisting. So I look to the past and I find all these incredibly exciting models of people who did not give up.
What about you, Kamau?
So I would say that certainly if your social media feed is not filled with young activists, you've got the wrong social media feed, because I think a lot of times there's a little bit of like, especially from people of a certain generation, and I'm Generation X, officially AARP certified, so I can rail against the old folks now.
Ouch.
Yeah. So I would say that like there's certainly trying to make sure actually that I'm like not just watching things, but like following people and then sharing them and then putting them out in the world so that people can see like there's a diversity of ideas from younger people out there who have figured out things that we're all still sort of railing against. You know what I mean? So use social media to make yourself smarter, not to make yourself angry, I guess is what I would say.
One of the questions I was wondering about, and maybe this one's for you, Kamau, is like, where is the space for a righteous kind of rage in the resistance right now?
You don't think there is righteous rage in the resistance?
I think there is. And I also think that it's really
you're wearing a
important.
Dead Pioneers t-shirt, sir.
That's true. We're playing Dead Pioneers through the whole show here.
I feel like I see righteous rage all the time. I just think rage is the fuel. To quote the prophet Zach De La Rocha, anger is a gift. Like it's like anger is not the end result. Anger is the thing that fuels the art or the politics or the next thing. And I think
Rebecca's nodding her head. Yeah,
What Rebecca's saying is a lot of these online.
No.
It's the same way the KKK gets white people. It's like your anger, your lack of achievement in your life is not your own to sort of figure out. It's the outside world who has done something. And so for KKK, they say it's black people's fault. For these online misogynistic male bro podcasters, it's women who need to change. Or you need to buy my course, which is where the Andrew Tate thing ends up. It's like, you know how you change? You subscribe to my thing that costs hundreds of dollars a month and you'll suddenly be me, you know. So I do think that like it's, yeah.
That was half a sentence. What's
Yeah,
the other half?
I realized that you were in the midst of, I think you had something to say about what I said, and I realized I just sort of kept
And now
going.
I'm angry at you.
Yep.
But,
Turn it into something
no.
positive.
Here come the fists
No,
again.
but one of the things, I think anger is a catch-all for a whole lot of radically different phenomena. Some of them actually really constructive and generative. Some of them basically hate that eats at your own soul before it poisons everything around you. But I think that there's righteous indignation, passion, and something I think that we miss all the time with activists is a lot of times if you hate something, it's because you love something. If you hate oil companies, it's because you love the planet.
It's like that great line in The Last Black Man in San Francisco. You don't get to hate San Francisco. Like, you don't get to hate it unless you love it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You only hate human rights abuses if you love people and you love rights. You hate injustice because you love justice. So a lot of my work has been trying to get people back to recognize the love underneath. And what I actually see in the activist world, the good activism is protective. It's like we're going to fight the oil companies, we're going to fight the deportations, we're going to fight for reproductive rights because, behind us is everything we love and protect. What's ahead of us is what's threatening it. So we're protective. And that's not even anger at all. So I feel like we need a different vocabulary for public emotion in the same way that, that joy is different than happiness. And we just need a better language for emotion. And we also need to understand how inauthentic anger can be.
Yeah.
So a lot of anger is really false in the facts it bases itself on and the fact that it's basically fed to them, the IV drip of resentment that comes from the internet. And the fact that everyone around Trump is an incredibly angry and hateful person is really quite
And not smart.
instructive. Yeah, well, stupid.
And not smart. I just want to put that in there.
Yeah.
As you've been putting it, Rebecca, the stupid coup.
Yeah.
Stupid coup.
No, I call it that all the time because it really is the gang that can't shoot straight.
Man, they could find qualified evil people who are like
Yeah.
sitting somewhere like, I could do this for you. Like I could really make this fascism more efficient and more quick.
Can I tell you which app to actually text on?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing, right.
We actually
And to not do the stupid thing you got caught doing again. The fact Pete Hegseth went back onto Signal to leak more military secrets is amazing.
It's called drunk texting.
Well, it's kind of fascinating how Trump was casting a reality TV show.
Yes.
Everyone had to be kind of good looking. A lot of them came from Fox. Well, their version of good looking, which means actually full of toxic poison from bottles of blonde and, or pumped up on steroids for the male version. And
Kamau, how's this showing up for you and in your family life and in your community life and your creative life?
I think, first of all, I'm super happy to have 3 daughters in this current time because I feel like as a dude, I can just sell out my gender to them. I can just tell them all the secrets. And one of the things is actually letting them know that anger is okay because as young women, they're not allowed to be, they're often told or society, not by me or their mom, but society says, it's like my middle kid was mad at a teacher. And I was like, you were right to be mad at that teacher. You have every right to be mad at that teacher and I'm mad with you. So I think really making sure they understand that I'm on your side and you have the right to feel how you feel. And just because an adult says it doesn't make it true, So I just wanted to sort of put a bow on the anger thing. The other thing, you talked about right after the election, Rebecca, and how you felt, I just felt clear, oh, okay, got it. I know what I'm here to do now. I'm here to be as clear as possible at all times and to try to let as little slide through as I can. So you mentioned my Instagram, I think a lot of what I'm there to do is just go, look at this story. Let's all make fun of it together, but also let's pay attention. You know what I mean? So I'm very clear about what my role is here. And especially in my industry, I was just talking to somebody before I came here. I'm really fortunate that even though I'm in showbiz, quote unquote, I have built a career that means I can actually say I don't like these people in ways that many of my showbiz coworkers just can't. And I don't blame them. You work in a corporate job. Even when I was at CNN, sometimes I get calls like, hey, Kamau, maybe don't say that. You know what I mean? So I understand that, but I feel really good that at the time that I need to have ownership over my voice, I actually have it.
How do we navigate overwhelm and fatigue in this moment? How are you to navigating that?
Well, you assume that we're actually doing it successfully, which is a mistake.
True.
And, one thing is, people who are not activists in any way often talk to me like activism is eating your broccoli, and I'm always like, well, at least sometimes it's drinking your champagne. Being around people who are passionate, who care about the common good, who have solidarity, who, activists, people who show up, people who do this work, have the highest principles. And then also for me, hanging out with people I love and enjoy, and being out in nature, being physically active, are all things that, mean I'm not doom scrolling or hope scrolling or just like caught up in the virtual world and information overload. Also just trying to keep these other parts of my life going and knowing that I'm going to do this every week, but it's not the only thing I'm going to do. And most of these things are long-term struggles. And, we talk about sustainability with the planet. Sustainability for yourself is really important, too. There's also kind of austerity on the left that's like nobody can have nice things till everybody has nice things. And I hate to be, that person. But we're never going to have a moment when absolutely everybody has nice things. So have some nice things along the way. And George Orwell spent time with his garden. He loved flowers, gardening, animals, and he spent a lot of time fighting fascism, sometimes with a gun in the Loyalist army in Spain. And, balanced diet.
Balanced diet.
Can't wait to hear your version.
Oh, yeah.
Then I'll feel like mine was way off. So go for it. Destroy me.
No, I'm not going to. This is competitive balance.
His balance is more balanced than my balance.
Well, I see what you did there, but I think I can top it. No, I'm just kidding.
Also patriarchal.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God.
Was that white of me?
No, I'll have to call my wife in, my white wife, to judge what was that patriarchal.
Some listeners are actually keeping a score somewhere, and they'll email it into us.
Let me actually just explain what she said better. That's a joke.
Thank you for marketing my product.
Exactly. So for me, you just came to see me do stand-up a couple weeks ago, Jeff. And part of the reasons why I'm able to do what I'm doing is because I'm sort of I like having my family around. And so the more that my family is an integrated part of my work, the better it is for me. Especially my kids, they see it as our stand-up comedy act and our show. My 6-year-old daughter, Asha, one of her friends was like, I saw your dad on TV. Is he famous? And she said, yeah. And then her friend goes, does that mean you're famous? And Asha goes, yeah. And so I was like, good. Glad.
She's 6 years old.
She's 6, yeah.
She's 6 years old, and I think you're going to have to rebrand yourself, or rebrand yourselves.
Yeah. Right? No, we're the Blackridge family is what I'm saying right now. For the people older than 50 who get that reference.
I am, and I don't.
Oh, the Partridge family?
Ah, got it.
It's a little bit of a push.
Yes.
But I'll work on it.
The Carter family, but no singing.
Yeah.
See, I'll give you a nice 1920s reference, even though I wasn't actually there.
Kamau and the Family Bell.
I love that.
There we go.
I love that. You guys will get flared pants.
Yeah,
you guys
exactly.
are working your dance routines.
I got to pick out my afro a little bit more to really hit that 70s. So the more that my kids see, they know what I do for a living. They know it. They know that it's dealing with difficult things. They know this thing is happening right now, then the fact that I had to explain to my 6-year-old what a difference between a mayor and a president, because of Barbara Lee, and she was like, I thought Donald Trump was the mayor. I'm like, no. So the fact that I'm able to have these open conversations with them the way my mom was with me makes it feel more balanced when you sort of feel like, well, I also have to really keep my foot on the neck of this thing as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Was my answer better than Rebecca's?
I am neutral here.
You have 3 adorable daughters, so you win.
I do. I have to say
but they're my gender.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Rebecca, you call hope a commitment and a discipline. And at this moment, right, as the Constitution's being flouted, as institutions are being pushed to collapse, what does it take for us to practice hope? And what gives you hope at this particular moment?
The hope is a discipline is a quite famous saying, I should say, from Mariam Kaba, the great anti-prison activist.
Abolitionist, yes.
Yes. But people do think hope is the same thing as optimism. Everything will be fine, which is why there's all that hopium,
Hopium. Just
animosity.
smoking my hopium,
Yep.
I've written a lot about hope. And for me, hope is not optimism at all, which is confidence that we know what's going to happen and it will be fine, which leads to passivity and inaction. Hope for me is the future is being created in the present and we have power to intervene. And if we do, there are some exciting possibilities. And that's kind of where we are right now. There are exciting possibilities. And I worry about people on the left saying, well, we don't want to go back to where we were. And I don't think we ever will. But back to where we were is infinitely better than where we are right now in almost every respect. So I like to talk about being resolute, which is like, we will not surrender. We will not give up just because we don't know what's going to happen. We're not going to say, nothing good can happen. But really, hope is a commitment to the future and a recognition we're making it in the present. It doesn't exist. Because something I see over and over is people talk as though the future has already been decided, as though things are inevitable. And what it mostly is, in my experience, tracking it for 20-something years, is relatively comfortable people saying there's nothing that can be done, which is really translates into I don't have to do anything. People on the front lines, indigenous communities fighting pipelines, immigrant communities, people facing racism as a very direct, violent, and maybe mortal threat, people facing the loss of their basic rights. They fight with everything they've got, and they don't give, they basically don't give up. And you see that under authoritarian regimes, with ethnic cleansing, et cetera, where it's like, if we give up, our children will die. So we're not going to give up. And I think part of what's going to get us through this terrible era now is stories about how other people got through these things.
Kamau, what's bringing you hope?
Oh, that wasn't what's bringing me hope. That's what's bringing me up. Never mind. I'm just like, did I answer the question?
No, you did.
I'm so happy that this gets edited.
Yes, we got it.
We got to keep all the parts in where she talks about the edit. I like that. It's just sort of similarly, I think that people ask me all the time when I'm traveling, like before Trump won, it's like, do you think it's going to be okay? And I was always like, no, I don't think it's going to be okay. People want me to say it's going to be okay because since I'm out in the world doing things, if Kamau thinks it's going to be okay, then it's going to be okay. And my job is to say, absolutely, it's not going to be okay if you just sit back and hope it's going to be okay. Hope means nothing without the effort, without the work. I feel like it's like faith is nothing without actions. One of those things that they say in the Black church. So you have to actually be doing the work. And whatever that work is for you can mean different things. And I feel like the more that people look at their own lives and communities and go, what can I do in my life and community to make this a world a better place, the better we are, and the less it's focused on, great, go to the protests, absolutely. But that's not, the work also happens between the protests, obviously.
I just want to throw in something really quickly. When you said people ask you if everything's going to be okay, that so often is a false binary. If everything's not okay, everything is completely doomed and terrible and there's nothing we can do about it. We have always lived in the space in between. We lived in it under the best presidents who are not perfect by a million miles, long shot. We're living in it in the worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, especially as a member of the Black community in this country, it's never really been okay. It's been different levels of, as a Black person in this country, you sort of weren't doing your job unless you were doing the job to put food on the table for your family and the job of how do I make it easier for the next generation of Black folks? But yes, as you said, there's no, everybody's okay is a different okay. And this country was founded on not okay.
Founded by not okay, for not okay, during not okay.
Well, this has been lovely, lovely, lovely. But I think we're late for band practice, y'all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes. I'm I was going to say tambourine.
Rebecca Solnit's new book is No Straight Road Takes You There, Essays for Uneven Terrain. Kamau Bell's new book is Who is Government? Thank you both for joining us on this episode of Notes from the Edge. And coming up after this musical interlude, I got a little something for you. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Celebrate white independence, great. All the white folks get a clean slate. Freedom sold as the newest elixir. American white, not an ethnic mixer. A country built on genocide. Wrestle with the facts and don't run and hide. Sets a tone for us countrywide. Blind nationalism, American pride. F*** you in your little patriot circle. F*** your capitalist infomercial. Your multi-level marketing at best. Imperialist cult, hand on your breast. Tax pay for war while we succumb. Just to make middle-class slums. Criminalize being broke. Yeah, we chalk it up to being woke. America is so star-spangled awesome. A nice place where the empire blossoms. Killing natives, built on slave labor too. When you bleed, you bleed red, white, and blue. With open hands, giant toddlers with demands. Check your notes, what's the result? Your people are in a fascist cult. Fed hopes in the American dream, fed equality and star-spangled themes. We are a nation of death and the gun. We're all nearly post-American.
That's Dead Pioneers with the title track from their new album, Post-American. And now, here's that some that I was promising you. We had a chance to catch up with Dead Pioneers leader Greg Deal at his home in Colorado as he was preparing for the band's international tour, which included opening for Pearl Jam in the U.S. Greg's the son of a white father and an American Indian mother. He's an enrolled member of the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe and was an acclaimed visual and performance artist before starting his band. He's now enjoying what he calls Act 2 of his creative life, with a band that's taking the music world by storm. Greg, welcome to Notes from the Edge.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So the new album's called Post-American, and it came out in April, just about 2 months into Trump's second term. What timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean for you and for us to be post-American?
Well, first and foremost, I'll tell you, I'm cynical about America. I'm cynical about patriotism, which I think has been very clearly perverted over the last several years. And I'm not sure that I necessarily subscribe to a lot that's there. Like my citizenship in my tribal nation is more important to me than my citizenship as an American, because there's a whole history there. But as a Native person, like we have a vested interest in what happens on these lands, and we have a vested interest in what this place needs to be. And so the great experiment that is supposed to be America is not what it once was. I would contest it has never been that way for me or for my people or for disenfranchised people, minority people, that we're actually past that point altogether. We've entered the age where we're not necessarily just talking about people of color being at the receiving end of some pretty devastating policies. Everybody is. And so it's no longer the America that we were told it was supposed to be. It's not even close. So we are kind of almost a dystopian statement, post-American.
So what got you into punk rock?
I think like a lot of kids, probably just good old-fashioned American disenfranchisement. I grew up in Park City, Utah, which, of course, the Sundance Film Festival's there. There's 3 major ski resorts, but really it's a small town. So I grew up as a brown kid in a white ski resort town in Utah, where my parents made just enough money for us to be broke around rich white people. And finding skateboarding and hip hop and punk rock were saving graces for me. There were things that I could believe in.
So I'm curious, did it lead you back into thinking about your Native Americanness, like your indigeneity?
To be clear, my entryway into sort of self-realization and identity comes through Spike Lee films and Public Enemy. And that music really activated me into those spaces. The punk was important, I think, on the anger end. There was also just something about being in those spaces of sort of controlled chaos. When you're mad because people keep calling you a racial slur at school, and then I can go to a show and let off some steam and feel like that I'm in the same place as others. But the ethos, the language, the vernacular of a lot of this music does speak to a fight, a disenfranchisement, a separation that sounds familiar to the indigenous struggle to me. And I've incorporated that into my art for that very reason as well.
So the name of the band, Dead Pioneers, where did that come from?
I was thinking about Kanye West and when he like worked with a white artist, and one of his merch images was a skull with a headdress on it. And that image has always stuck with me. Like, I don't agree with that image because it is talking about dead Indians. And there's something grotesque about the image to me. It's like, man, we're always talking about dead native people. Like, what about the dead whites? What about the dead settlers? What about the dead pioneers? And I grew up in Utah, and Utahns are very keen on their pioneer heritage. So it's meant to be tongue in cheek, but it's also meant to push those buttons of things that I grew up with.
You've been at this for a really long time. You've called yourself a disruptor. Now you're kind of perched on the verge of mass success, like one foot in the door and the other one in the gutter, right? Like the Replacements. You're sort of in that kind of place. And as you move through this, what changes? Do you soften the things you've been saying?
As a band, we decided, especially right after the swearing in this year, that like no matter what we do, we have to be unapologetic in what we're saying and what we think. There's a statistic, I think it's like 40% of Americans believe that Native people are extinct in the United States. Why do American citizens think that we don't exist? So, like, not only are we like trying to make sure that people know indigenous people exist, but to even know what the nuance of what that means is, what our experiences are, where do we fit, politically, knowing that our entire existence within the United States, and in particular, as it's framed in the so-called founding documents of this country, that we are inherently political in our existence. And as this administration demonizes anybody essentially who's not white, there is going to be, I believe, a concerted effort to undermine our existence, and Americans who don't know their history enough to know what an indigenous person is and what a reservation is, and what treaties are, and how the Supreme Court placed a federal trust obligation on indigenous people, and how all of that works.
So you're seeing attacks on native sovereignty coming down.
Yeah. We have to speak out as loud as we can, and I have a platform here to do that, so that people can maybe, just maybe, understand a little bit more about indigenous existence and our efforts for indigenous liberation.
The band Dead Pioneers, the album Post American. You can see Greg Deal's art, and that's Greg with 2 G's, at gregdeal.com. Man, it's been such a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us on Notes from the Edge.
Thanks so much.
History known, history unknown, robbing us like Lily Gladstone. Christian heathens, Christian demons, take some more. We are at war. Consumption city, we die in committees. Apologize before you say please. Pride cuts you at the knees. Fight a man with nothing to lose. Fight a man who misconstrues. Woo! You know who you are. You culture vulture, fake ass Indians trying to take and benefit off our culture. Our ceremonies, burning sage, benevolent cultural appropriation, honor by stealing some new age settler colonial thievery. Get your own culture.
That last song was My Spirit Animal Ate Your Spirit Animal from Greg Deal and Dead Pioneers. So, last night, along with a few hundred other folks in Oakland, I got to see Kumu Norma Kaveluku Wong. She's a community organizer of Chinese and Native Hawaiian descent, a Zen priest, and the author of a book called When No Thing Works. And she told us a story that's really stuck with me. It was about bison and what they do when they sense a storm coming. She said they don't turn and run from it, they gather and run towards the storm, and then through it to the other side. That's the way they get through the storm. So maybe it's time for us to figure out how we can all move forward through this storm together. Thank you for listening to our very first episode of Notes from the Edge. And thanks to our guests, Rebecca Solnit, W. Kamau Bell, and Greg Dio from Dead Pioneers. A big mahalo to our whole team, David Boyer, Kenny Keita, David Kwan, Tarek Ansari, Victor Tentz, James Cass, and Michelle Mush Lee. Our theme song is Imani by Chief Excel and Black Alicious. Rest in peace, Gift of Gab. I'm Jeff Chang, and this is Notes from the Edge on KALW.